Okay, welcome to the last lecture in this course, and in this final video here, I'll be showing you just a few examples of how I personally go about analyzing the various statistics and metrics that I gather from my trades, and giving you some ideas as to how you can do the same. Now, a few things to note here before I get started. A lot of what I do when analyzing my statistics is relevant specifically for options trading. So if you're watching this course as a stock trader or a forex trader, then perhaps my examples in this video may not be super applicable to you, but they should still give you some ideas. And number two, everything that I show you here can also be done in a spreadsheet. I personally don't do a lot of my analysis in spreadsheets beyond what I track in this section here with my individual trades and also some of these high-level portfolio statistics. But like I said, everything you're about to see in terms of the data munging and analysis, you can also do in a spreadsheet. And so in particular, what I have done is I have written a Go application. This is basically a computer program that will read through my spreadsheets every month and import the data into a database on my computer. Right? So basically, I convert this entire spreadsheet into a .csv file, and I feed that file into this program here. And like I said, it then imports all the data into a database on my computer. And that just allows me to analyze that data a bit more easily than in a spreadsheet. But once again, this is all totally not required. You can do all this stuff in a spreadsheet. And so now if I come over here, this is an application called PG Admin, and it simply allows me to write queries or another form of computer code to analyze the data in my database. So for example, I can run this query right here, and it's simply going to show you every record in my trades table, which is basically a collection of every trade I've made since I began actually logging my trades. So now if I execute this query here, and I pull this up here a bit, so this is all the data in my trades table within my database. And as you can see here at the top with these headers, it's basically the exact same thing as my spreadsheet. Right? If I zoom in here, the position identifier, the underlying asset, strikes, strike width, expiration date, so on and so forth, all those same exact columns are right here as well. Right? Position identifier, the underlying, strikes, strike width, so on and so forth. And so now let's say I wanted to get a breakdown of the profitability of my various option trading strategies within a certain time frame. So now let me move this back down here just a little bit, and I can type in a new query to run. Okay, so here's the next query I'm going to run, and like I said, it will give me a breakdown of each position type, like an iron condor, a strangle, a naked put, etc. And for every trade I've made since December 1st, 2020, within each of those position categories, what is my total realized P&L? Was I profitable or not profitable for my strangles or my naked puts or my iron condors? This will tell me. So let's go ahead and run this query. And there you go. Down here, this NP stands for naked put. So for all the naked puts that I have sold since December 1st, 2020, my total realized P&L up to this point is $1,853. And then likewise, for all the strangles I have sold since December 1st, 2020, my current profit and loss for those position types is $1,298. And then for put credit spreads, that's what PCS stands for, $381. And then lastly, for iron condors, that's what IC stands for. I have actually not been profitable with these positions at least since December of last year. Right now, I've lost $110 with these kinds of strategies. So this is a great way to see which kinds of positions, which kinds of strategies are actually profitable or not profitable for me, and by how much. And actually, during the summer of last year, of 2020, I was selling a lot more call credit spreads. And after doing this analysis, after making a few of those kinds of trades over a few weeks and months, I realized that that particular strategy was really not working out for me. That was one of my biggest losing strategies. And that's because a call credit spread is a bearish strategy. And ever since the bottom of the market crash of last year, the market has just gone up. In fact, it's basically been skyrocketing. So no wonder my call credit spreads have not been turning a profit. And so that's why since December, and actually probably a bit before that, I have not sold any call credit spreads. Right? You do not see CCS anywhere in this table here. And so perhaps if the market does take a turn at some point and starts to move downwards, then I might start considering that call credit spread strategy again. But for right now, at least, this analysis has told me that is not a great strategy to use at the moment in this current market environment. And so of course, no wonder my put credit spread and my naked puts, which are both very bullish strategies, no wonder both of these strategy types have worked out very well in this skyrocketing market. Now, a different form of analysis that I also like to do is I like to write queries that will show me if I'm being consistent or not with my trading. For example, for each trade that I make, I track the IV rank, the IV percentile, the probability of profit, my profit target, etc. for each trade. And I want to make sure that these are relatively consistent. And that's because consistency is absolutely crucial for your portfolio level statistics, the ones down here, for them to actually be accurate, right? For instance, my average profit per win, if I was making trades that were super inconsistent in terms of my profit target, and some trades I was making $500 in profit on, and other trades I was making only $20 in profit on, of course I can still take the average of all that, but the average is not going to mean that much if there are such huge fluctuations, such discrepancies in my profits. And that will of course affect my expected P&L per trade. So like I said, when you are making trades, you want to make sure that each trade you make is as consistent as possible with your previous trades. So now coming back over here, let me write another query. Okay, so here we go. This one is going to take the average of all my probability of profits for every trade I've made since December of 2020. And what I want to see here is that my average probability of profit, or my average POP, is around 70% or 0.7. It's going to show it as a decimal, right? A 70% probability of profit is what I always shoot for when making a trade. And so I can run this one and we'll see if I was consistent with that since December. Run this one. And there we go. The average was 0.73. So right around 70%. And what about if I go back even further to, let's say, October of 2020? Highlight this and run it. And let me expand this out. So now, looking at all my trades since October of 2020, my average probability of profit is 0.72 or 72%. Still very, very consistent. So these kinds of queries are a good way for me to spot check myself to make sure that I'm still maintaining consistency with my trades. And I can do the same exact thing with a different metric, let's say the IV rank. And for those of you who are not option traders, this is simply a metric that will tell you how relatively high or low implied volatility was for the stock that I traded options on. And for me as an options seller, I want the IV rank to be high, meaning I want the implied volatility for the stocks I'm trading to be high. And so in terms of consistency, I want to make sure that the average IV rank amongst all my trades is at least above 30. So let's go ahead and run this one. And there we go. You can see the average IV rank for all my trades since October 1st of 2020 was 38.65, well above my minimum of 30. And I'll do this one more time for a different metric. Let's look at the initial risk on my trades. And if you recall, this means in percentage terms, what percentage of my capital am I allocating for each trade? And for me, I want to make sure that's under 5% on average. So one more time, let's run this query. And I'll expand this out again. And so there you go. You can see the average initial risk for my trade since October of 2020 was just under 1.6%. Again, this is showing as a decimal, not as a percentage. So for me, I prefer to keep my trade size very, very small on average. And I can definitely do more fancy things as well, like looking at the standard deviation of my initial risk across my trades, or the standard deviation of the IV rank to see where the outliers were, right? Because averages will still give you a pretty good holistic picture of a certain metric, but definitely amongst all the trades it's including in this calculation here, there can definitely be a few that were way out of line. Perhaps I had a few trades where instead of allocating under 5% of my account for those trades, maybe I went way too big. I went 10% or 15%. And so like I said, I can look at things like standard deviation for that, or I can also apply a totally different function. You can see here, I'm using the average function to obviously take the average of my initial risk amongst all my trades. But what if I swap this out with max? Now this will look at all the trades I made since October of 2020 and find the one trade with the most initial risk. So let's go ahead and run this one and expand this out. And so now you can see down here, there was one trade I made where I allocated 3.55% of my account of my capital for that one trade, which is still well under my 5% maximum. And lastly here, I'll show you one more example. Let's go back to this second query here. Now before, when I was showing you this one, it was breaking down all the trades I made for each position category and just showing you the realized P&L for each position type, right? But what if I wanted to add another filter to this query? Perhaps I only want to see the breakdown of my trades by category and only for the earnings trades I've made, only for the trades that I played specifically on earnings announcements. So now under this where clause, I can add a new line and then just write and earnings equals 1. And the reason why I'm doing this is because if I come back to my spreadsheet here, I do have another column in my sheet called earnings. And this column is either going to be 0 or 1 for each trade that I log. And I'll zoom in a bit here. Right, so for all these trades, because the earnings column is 0, these were not trades that I made specifically for an earnings announcement. But if I scroll down a bit, this one was, and so was this one. So now let's come back. And so again, I want to see the breakdown of all my positions by each position category, and I want to see the profitability of those position categories, but for only the trades I made over earnings announcements. So one more time, let's run this query here. And I'll expand this out. And there we go. Since December of 2020, I've made trades on earnings announcements with strangles, naked puts, iron condors, and put credit spreads. And so far, up to this point, every single one has been profitable. Or I should say the total outcome of all the trades I've made within each of these position categories has been profitable on those earnings announcements. So now I know from this analysis here that earnings announcements for me are definitely a profitable event for me to trade. So of course that means I'm going to keep playing earnings announcements and also with these kinds of strategies. And so there you go. Those are a few examples of how I personally go about analyzing the various metrics and statistics that I gather on my trades. And there are many, many other ways and other things I do as well. But again, I just wanted to give you a few simple examples here so that you can see my process and also, like I said, to give you some ideas as to what you can do as well. And so now in the final little video coming up next, I'll just be wrapping some things up and I'll send you on your way. So thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.